Record.
Great thing to do. I just saw the bridge of my great grandson in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
Houston. Good afternoon, everyone. Last Shabbos, I spoke to you about the theme of the Megillah. And the theme of the Megillah was that the Rishonim made a mountain out of a molehill. Achashverosh is insulted because of Vashti, so he kills her. Haman is insulted because Mordechai won't bow down, so he wants to destroy the entire Jewish people. It's always the expansion of the issue. The issue itself is relatively unimportant, but it's what you do with it that creates the problem. And in the Megillah, we see that the Rishonim overplay the issue, and Tzaddikim underplay it. Mordechai told Esther about Bigsun Vaseresh. Esther told Achashverosh. They wrote it down, and for years nothing was done about it. They underplayed it. When the time came that it had to come into play, it was there. So we find that in this week's Parsha as well. The Mefarshim point out that that is unfortunately a trait of a Rasha. Trait of a person that is negative. Because that's our definition of a Rasha. The person who has a negative personality. So the whole world is not good enough. And therefore he's entitled to do whatever he wants, to take whatever action he wants, simply because he's dissatisfied with the role that's assigned to him. So in this week's Parsha it says, Vayarhom ki voshesh Moshe l'redes min ha'or. The people were aware that somehow the rabbi was late for Mincha. They had a calculation when Moshe should come back. As I'll say, Boshesh is Boshesh. Rashi points out it came to be the 6th hour, and that, according to their calculations, was when Moshe should have come down, and Moshe didn't come down. So then they got all into a nervous tizzy. And they said, Ki Moshe Ish Asher Elona Mitzrayim, Moshe who took us out of Mitzrayim, we don't know what happened to him. He's not here. So he's not here. So what changed? Nothing in reality changed. Aaron was still there. Everything that had existed for the previous 40 days was there. The moon fell in the morning. The well of Miriam operated. So there's a blip, there's something that went wrong. So Tzaddikim would be able to say that that's the way life is, and let's continue. Let's move on. We'll deal with it the best way we can. Because the tzaddik knows that the Jewish people can survive even after Moshe. We're never dependent on one person. were never dependent that all of the Jewish survival is somehow it's totally on one person. But the Rishonim, that's enough to set them off. Because I'll say that the Om here means the Erev Rav. People don't have patience. The general public certainly doesn't have patience. You know, every bad sports team, so they fire the coach and the new guy comes and he says, we're going to go on a rebuilding program. But you have to have patience. It takes 4 years, 5 years to rebuild the team. And they'll fire him after 3 years. We want to have instantaneous results. We want it to happen now. We don't want to wait 4 or 5 years to see what the results are. That's why the Navi says, Rishoyim kayom nigrosh. The Rishoyim are like the waves of the sea. They're constantly beating at the shore. They're never calm. So the Jewish people said, we don't know what happened to Moshe. He's late. Then from the fact that he's late, he's not coming. From the fact that he's not coming, we're not going to have anybody to lead us. So we have to make an egel. We have to create somehow Asher yelech lefanenu, that he will lead us, he'll go before us. Eile Elohecha Yisrael, somebody that we can bow down to, someone that we can worship, even if it be wrong. There are many streams in the Medrash that they knew that this was useless. They knew that they had just heard on Sinai, Lo Yelecha, Lo Sasa Lecha. They knew that all of that was not going to get them anywhere. But they had to do something. And when you have to do something, even if you do what's wrong, but at least you did something. We see it all the time here in the political situation and what goes on in the country. You know, the government has to do something. They don't know what to do. Most of what they've done until now is wrong, but they did something. That's the main thing. And that became the source of the ego. And Aaron is unable to instill into them the necessary spirit of patience. Aaron is unable to tell them, listen, your calculations are wrong. Moshe's coming a day later. Not coming today, he's coming tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow. But they were insistent that you have to do something. So Aaron asks for their gold and silver in the anticipation that they will not give it. But when it comes to the ego, there's never a shortage of gold and silver. For they're always wallowing in money. And so Aaron takes it and throws it in the fire. So Rashi again brings the Medrash that the Erev Rav had incantations. Somehow they had a formula to recite, a kishuv, something, and the ego came prancing out. And when the moment that happened, they said, hey, Elohecha Yisrael. So out of a small incident, a miscalculation on their part as to when Moshe was going to come down from the mountain, So there is a sin of such magnitude that it extends throughout all of the generations. The Ompokti Pokariti, the Rebbeinu Shalom says. And I'm always collecting on this sin, this debt. I'm always garnishing money for what they did. So that's a remarkable insight on what makes a Russia. Makes a Russia is the impatience. The conviction somehow that I had it figured right. And if it didn't come out the way I had it figured, then there's something wrong. And when there's something wrong, so then we have to do something to correct it, even if what we do to correct it is wrong too. And that explains, if we'll think about it, a great deal of human behavior. That's why Chazal said that people are showing cherposo ve'eno meshivim. People who are insulted, or they hear things that people say about them, and they don't answer. They let it rest. So Aleim Nemar V'Yolavov K'tseis Hashemish B'Gvurasa. That's considered to be the highest form of heroism. To let it rest, which is against our nature. It's very hard to do so. Especially in our time of media. So whatever one says, in 2 minutes you get a message back from other people before Odhe Medabrim Vani Yeshmo. While they're still talking, they already have got their opinion made. And this creates an atmosphere which is very painful, very hard to live through, very hard to avoid the sin of creating idols, of looking for answers when there's no necessity to do so, and when even you are aware that the answers are wrong, but you have to do something. That's a great lesson from the ego. So Chazal always saw the ego as an unnecessary Avera. There are Averas that, so to speak, are necessary, that you see why. They didn't have what to eat, so they complained, so you see why. But here it's completely unnecessary. Nevertheless, they constructed it in such a way that they felt they had an imperative to do something. And when the imperative to do something is present, so even if what someone does is wrong, and the person knows it's wrong, but nevertheless he did something. And that alone is sufficient. That salves the conscience, makes the person feel better. So there's a great psychological lesson in this that the Meforshim wanted us to derive from this fact. And that's why the Torah said, the Torah wanted to tell you the story from the beginning. The beginning is nothing. But look what happened at the end. Look how it exploded in their face. Look at the impression that it made for generations, and that it still continues to make even in our own time. So the parsha of the ego bears a constant study, a constant review, because it repeats itself in our life in many, many different facets and in many different ways. It comes alive to us. That's why Chazal said that the ego came out alive. It was not a dead golden calf, it was a live golden calf. And the Meforshim say because in every generation it's still alive, still here. It's not just the statue. And the fact that we can embody good lessons from it and develop good characteristics, so that the story can certainly benefit us and to bring us to a level where it never will again be repeated. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash, Omer Ratzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael, Picha Tirba Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar,